Accidents can strike anyone, but some deaths are truly mind-boggling. In this video, we uncover 5 shocking true stories of people who met their end in the most bizarre and unreasonable ways. These unbelievable tales of unexpected fatalities will leave you stunned and questioning how such things could even happen. It was January 29, 1998, in Akron, Ohio. Michael Gentner, a 23-year-old, was spending the evening at a house on Edgemore Avenue with 3 friends. They were likely just chatting, laughing, and enjoying themselves, possibly with alcohol involved, though this remains unclear. What started as a casual night soon became a tragedy no one could have foreseen. At some point, someone proposed a dare. Michael was challenged to swallow a live fish. While unusual, eating live fish as part of a dare isn't unheard of, especially in party settings where people try risky stunts to entertain or impress others. However, the fish in question was about 5 inches long, a significant size for such a challenge. Eager to accept, Michael attempted the dare. At first, it might have seemed like a harmless prank. After all, similar dares are often taken lightly. But this was no ordinary fish. Its size made the attempt dangerous, and things quickly went wrong. Michael tried to swallow the fish, but it lodged in his throat, blocking his airway. He immediately began struggling to breathe. Realizing the gravity of the situation, his friends panicked. One of them called 911, explaining that Michael was choking after eating fish. However, they didn't clarify that the fish was still alive and stuck in his throat. The 911 operator instructed Michael to perform the Heimlich maneuver to dislodge the fish. However, in their panic, Michael's friends either failed to perform the maneuver effectively or accidentally made things worse. The fish remained lodged in his throat, and every second counted. Paramedics arrived quickly, but it was already too late. They found Michael unresponsive, with the fish's tail still visible in his mouth, a haunting sign of the deadly dare. Emergency responders tried to resuscitate him, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Michael was pronounced dead at 2:13 a.m. The incident left his friends in shock and grief. None of them imagined that a simple dare would lead to such a devastating outcome. Authorities later confirmed that the fish came from an aquarium in the house, but its exact species was never identified. The police addressed the tragedy bluntly, with Major Mike Matulovich asserting that if someone dares another person to jump off a bridge and chooses to do so at 23 years of age, they are responsible for their actions. His statement emphasized personal accountability while highlighting the tragic consequences of reckless decisions. Michael's death is a painful reminder of how quickly harmless fun can spiral into disaster. Though no one was charged with a crime, the incident weighed heavily on everyone involved. His friends were left with guilt and the knowledge that their actions, while not intended to harm, played a part in a terrible mistake. Michael's mother, Karen Copland, remained quiet about the tragedy, likely overcome with grief. For her and those who knew Michael, his loss was a heartbreaking lesson about the risks of impulsive behavior and the thin line between thrill-seeking and danger. This tragic event shows how even seemingly harmless dares can have deadly consequences. In moments of excitement or peer pressure, it's easy to overlook the risks. Unfortunately, Michael's story is an example of how quickly a decision made in the heat of the moment can lead to irreversible consequences. On October 28, 2019, 47-year-old Tetsu Shiohara, a Japanese man, set out to climb Mount Fuji alone. He chose the Shubashiri Trail, a route more commonly used for descending rather than ascending the mountain. Tetsu was determined to complete this climb, but focused more on entertaining his online audience than preparing for winter hiking risks. Tetsu was a novice climber who needed proper training and improved gear for Mount Fuji's icy, snow-covered slopes during the off-season. Dressed in everyday clothes more suited for autumn weather, he carried little more than hiking poles and his smartphone. He aimed to live-stream his climb on the Japanese platform Nico Nico under Let's Go to Snowy Mount Fuji. This gave the impression of a casual outing despite the dangerous conditions he faced. Mount Fuji's climbing season officially ends in September. By late October, the weather on the mountain becomes extremely harsh, with snow, ice, and freezing winds making it treacherous. While authorities advise against hiking during this time, no laws prevent climbers from attempting it. Tetsu, unfortunately, chose to ignore these warnings. As the live stream began, the scenery looked stunning. Snow-covered paths, patches of exposed rock, and clouds in the distance. Tetsu narrated his journey, commenting on the beauty around him. However, as he climbed higher, the conditions began to deteriorate. His fingers grew painfully cold, and he remarked, "I should have brought a hot pack." Still, he pressed on. As he climbed, the trail became steeper and more slippery. Tetsu noted the increasing danger, saying, "This place is slippery, getting dangerous." But he didn't turn back. Instead, he moved beyond the safety barriers meant to protect climbers, putting himself in a precarious position. The snow-covered path narrowed, and the icy surface became more difficult to navigate. His shoes, which lacked proper traction, made it even harder to maintain his footing. Despite the worsening conditions, Tetsu focused on engaging his viewers. He struggled to keep his balance at one point and said, "Wait, I'm slipping," with noticeable panic. Moments later, the live stream captured him losing his footing and sliding uncontrollably down the mountain. The camera tilted wildly before the video cut off, shocking viewers. Alarmed, the audience immediately alerted authorities. Search and rescue teams from Shizuoka and Yamanashi prefectures surrounding Mount Fuji launched an operation the next morning. After hours of searching, they found Tetsu's body on October 29th at an altitude of 9,800 feet near the mountain's 7th station. He had fallen approximately 1,000 meters from where he had slipped. Though formal identification was pending then, the live stream and location left little doubt about the victim's identity. Mount Fuji, at 12,389 feet, is both beautiful and dangerous. It attracts countless hikers yearly, but has also claimed many lives, especially during the off-season. Tetsu's tragic climb highlighted the risks of underestimating such conditions. He lacked essential gear, such as crampons for gripping the ice and proper clothing to withstand the freezing weather. Instead of prioritizing his safety, he seemed more concerned with entertaining his audience. After his death, many discussions arose about his decision to continue the climb, despite the obvious dangers. His focus on live streaming overshadowed his awareness of the risks. Viewers who had witnessed the incident felt helpless, knowing they could do nothing to prevent the outcome. Tetsu's story also drew attention when he was posthumously recognized by the Darwin Awards, an informal honor given to individuals whose actions lead to avoidable tragedies. While this recognition sparked debate, it illustrated what can happen when safety is disregarded in pursuit of entertainment. What might have been different if Tetsu had been better prepared or turned back when conditions worsened? His story is a warning for anyone attempting extreme activities without proper preparation. Climbing mountains like Fuji requires more than determination. It demands respect for nature and the understanding that safety should always come first. It was 9:55 p.m. on Monday, February 27, 2012, in Havelock, North Carolina, when 43-year-old Gary Allen Banning visited a friend's apartment. What began as an ordinary evening ended in a tragic, unexpected accident that would cost Gary his life. The friend, a mechanic, had earlier used gasoline to clean grease from his hands, a common practice in his line of work. The gasoline was stored in a clear salsa jar near the kitchen sink, a seemingly harmless spot. The jar's contents appeared ordinary to anyone unfamiliar, but the liquid inside was highly flammable. At some point, perhaps distracted or tired, Gary picked up the jar and took a sip, likely mistaking it for a beverage. He realized his mistake too late. He quickly spat out the gasoline, but not before some of it spilled onto his clothing. Unaware of the lingering danger, Gary carried on with his evening, not knowing the tragic chain of events that would soon unfold. A short while later, Gary went outside to smoke a cigarette, a casual action he had probably done countless times before. However, the gasoline on his clothes posed a deadly risk. When the cigarette ignited, the gasoline on his clothing instantly caught fire, engulfing Gary in flames. His friend, who was nearby, rushed to help, desperately trying to extinguish the fire. Emergency services were immediately called. Firefighters arrived to find Gary severely burned. He was rushed to Carolina East Medical Center in New Bern and later transferred to the UNC Burn Center in Chapel Hill. Despite medical efforts, Gary succumbed to his injuries the next morning, just after 6 a.m. The incident was ruled a tragic accident, not involving foul play. Authorities later revealed that alcohol had been a factor, and there was speculation about drug involvement. Still, the primary cause of the tragedy was clear: Gary's accidental ingestion of gasoline, combined with his decision to smoke while wearing clothes soaked in the flammable liquid. The aftermath was devastating. Investigators noted that the apartment door was charred. His friend, who had witnessed the accident, was left traumatized. The attempt to save Gary had been in vain, and the horrifying events of that evening left a permanent scar, both physically and emotionally. Gary's death was a result of a series of small yet deadly mistakes. What if he had recognized the gasoline in the jar? What if he had changed his clothes immediately after spilling it? These questions linger but have no answers. This tragic accident tells us about the dangers of flammable substances and the unintended consequences of simple errors. Gary's life ended in a way no one could have foreseen, leaving behind only the memory of a tragic, preventable event. It was February 24, 2017 in Singapore. Jonathan Chow, a 17-year-old who had just returned after studying in Australia, spent the day with his close friend Ruth at Orchard Central Shopping Center. Jonathan was known for his adventurous personality and love for skateboarding. As he prepared for his upcoming national service, this day took a tragic turn that would cut his life short. While exploring the mall, Jonathan came up with an idea for a stunt he could film for Snapchat. He enjoyed capturing daring moments and often shared them with his friends. That day, he suggested jumping over a railing onto a ledge below. Ruth was hesitant, knowing it was risky, but Jonathan convinced her to record the moment. "Help me film this," he said, ready to leap. Neither he nor Ruth realized the ledge was made of plasterboard, a material unable to support his weight. They both assumed it was solid concrete. The ledge immediately gave way as Jonathan jumped, causing him to fall 4 stories to the ground below. Ruth watched in horror as Jonathan fell. She later shared that she couldn't stop him in time. Witnesses and CCTV footage confirmed the sequence of events. The footage showed Jonathan standing near the railing, talking to Ruth, and then leaping over it. The plasterboard collapsed and he plunged to the ground. Bystanders rushed to help, performing CPR as paramedics arrived. Despite their efforts, Jonathan's injuries were too severe. He was pronounced dead at 5:39 p.m. The fall caused major trauma, including head injuries, broken ribs, and significant internal damage. Initially, Ruth misrepresented the situation to authorities, saying Jonathan had dropped his phone onto the ledge and fell while trying to retrieve it. She also shared this version with Jonathan's mother, who was in Sydney then. However, as the investigation progressed, Ruth admitted that Jonathan had jumped intentionally to perform a stunt for social media. Jonathan's friends described him as daring and confident, often attempting bold stunts like skating down staircases or jumping from high places. Tragically, his adventurous nature led to this irreversible loss. The state coroner later ruled his death as a tragic misadventure, emphasizing the importance of considering risks in such situations. Jonathan's parents were devastated. His father, Matthew Chow, remembered him as a sociable and friendly young man with a great sense of humor. Jonathan had been excited about his future after completing his national service. His sudden passing left a deep void for his family and friends. The incident raised serious concerns about safety in public spaces. During the inquiry, a building consultant explained that the ledge was made of calcium silicate board, designed for fire protection and aesthetics, not to support weight. Orchard Central's management responded by reviewing its safety measures. The glass barrier, standing 1.2 meters high, was intended to prevent such incidents. After Jonathan's fall, they increased security patrols and examined ways to enhance safety. Jonathan's story also sparked conversations about the dangers of risky behavior influenced by social media. Just days earlier, a young woman in New Zealand lost her life while trying to take a selfie near a dangerous area. These incidents highlight the pressure on young people to gain attention online, sometimes at the cost of their safety. Jonathan's tragic death is a reminder of the importance of making safe choices, especially when attempting stunts. His life, full of potential, ended in an avoidable tragedy. This incident underscores the need to prioritize safety over fleeting online fame. It was Monday, September 3, 2018, in West Auckland, New Zealand. Howard Miller, a 39-year-old father of 3 and a professional welder, had arrived at his friend Josh O'Neill's house on Universal Drive. The two planned to work on a car project, installing a new exhaust manifold on a Holden WB Kingswood sedan. What began as a routine task ended in an unexpected tragedy. Earlier that day, Miller brought along a new invention he was excited to showcase. He had combined two essential welding components, acetylene and oxygen, into a single LPG bottle. These gases are stored in separate containers with regulators to prevent dangerous reactions. However, Miller removed the regulator from the tank, a decision that would prove catastrophic. Confident in his innovation, he ignored the potential risks. O'Neill, familiar with welding hazards, immediately recognized the danger of combining the gases in one bottle. He warned Miller repeatedly, calling the setup risky and unsafe. Despite O'Neill's protests, Miller continued, determined to test his new method. He attached the welding torch to the bottle, bypassing the safety mechanism. Concerned for his safety, O'Neill decided to leave the shed. "I'm out of here," O'Neill told Miller, stepping outside. Minutes later, he heard a small bang that quickly escalated. A powerful explosion flattened the shed, sending shrapnel, debris, and smoke into the air. Steel, wood, and metal fragments rained down, shattering windows in nearby houses. O'Neill turned around to see the wreckage, fearing the worst. Rushing back to the site, O'Neill shouted for his friend. To his relief, he heard Miller calling back. Despite the devastation, Miller's voice sounded calm, giving O'Neill hope he might still be okay. However, upon reaching Miller, O'Neill realized the extent of his injuries. The explosion had caused severe harm, leaving Miller's body unrecognizable. Though Miller initially appeared conscious, he succumbed to his injuries moments later, passing away in front of his devastated friend. The fire from the explosion continued to burn, fueled by nearby paint thinners, gasoline, and steel toolboxes torn apart by the blast. The destruction left O'Neill in shock. He realized how close he had been to the danger, knowing he could have been another victim if he had stayed in the shed. Emergency responders arrived at a chaotic scene. Neighbors were alarmed, and many speculated that illegal activities could have caused the explosion. However, O'Neill quickly clarified the situation, telling reporters it was a tragic accident related to the welding job. Investigators confirmed that no foul play was involved and that the mishandling of dangerous materials caused the explosion. The case was later referred to the coroner for further review. Miller's passing left his family and friends in deep mourning. He was remembered as a kind and generous man who loved his family and worked hard to provide for them. His father, Herbert Miller, described Howard as humble and helpful, always putting others first. Miller left behind his wife, Abigail, and 3 children, aged 8 to 15, who were heartbroken by the sudden loss. For over a decade, Stacy Leth, Miller's best friend, cherished their close bond and shared fond memories of him. Now residing in Brisbane, Leth described Miller as a devoted father with an uplifting attitude. Leth likened him to a brother, recalling his knack for offering wise advice and spreading joy. The tragedy profoundly impacted Leth and Miller's colleagues, who deeply respected his dedication to his craft. A skilled welder, Miller had honed his trade under the guidance of his father-in-law and took immense pride in his work. The incident underscored the risks of handling hazardous materials without proper precautions. Miller's attempt to simplify his work by mixing the gases in one bottle led to a chain of events that caused unimaginable damage. The combination of acetylene and oxygen without the appropriate safety equipment created an extremely volatile situation. O'Neill, though physically unharmed, struggled with the memory of that night. The sight of Miller's van still parked outside his house is a painful reminder of the friend he lost. The community also felt the impact, with many shaken by the explosion that disrupted their peaceful neighborhood. Investigators concluded that the explosion resulted from a critical error in handling the welding materials. Though unintended, this mistake cost Miller his life and caused extensive damage. His story warns about the importance of safety and caution when working with dangerous substances. Howard Miller will be remembered as a devoted father, a skilled welder, and a kind-hearted individual whose life was cut short. His family, friends, and community continue to grieve his loss while cherishing the memories he left behind.